Well, this will be our last panel of the day, and so again, I'm Eric Samuelson, current president, Northarvest Bean Growers Association. I've been on a trade trip to the UK in November of 21, but I'll save my presentation till last. So what I'm going to do is I'll just hand the mic to the next gentleman next to me, and he'll have introduce himself, his relationship to Northarvest, and then the trade missions that he represents.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Cordell Huebsch. I hail from Peru, Minnesota, director with the Northarvest Bean Growers Association. Last April, I was blessed to make a trade mission. We went to the Alimentaria is what it was called. It's a famous food show, I guess, in Barcelona, Spain. I think it's been attended by our board for many, many years. And, you know, it was my first ever experience at a food show, and so I had a lot of learning to do. But I guess the biggest takeaway I'd like to just throw out there was that as a grower, I was almost like a celebrity is what it seemed like. There's a lot of buyers and exporters that go on these trips, and the point of these food shows is to make connections to sell beans around the world. But the buyers over there in Europe especially, they have so many questions, and it's one thing, you know, just to ask somebody that's selling you something for an answer, and it's a completely another thing to actually have the person that's on the ground doing the farming to have a conversation about whatever silly things they think we do, you know. And so I think it's super powerful. Was able to have a lot of great conversations with people about how we grow things here in the upper Midwest, put a lot of unfounded nonsense to bed, and just it's powerful, I think, for these buyers to be able to put a face you know, to what they're buying, and then when they go to sell their product, they can say that they talk to the people. So it was a really positive deal. As far as the attendance on the show and these kinds of things, that particular show in Alimentaria was basically Spanish buyers. A lot of our crop goes into that Spain area, and then we actually stopped in Naples because COVID was still kind of a thing, so some of the Italian people didn't want to come over, so we stopped and met with some buyers in Italy. And overall, it was an incredible experience, and I think it's super important to continue to do things like that. So that's my 2 cents.
Hi, my name is Kevin Reagan. I'm a farmer in north central, northeast North Dakota, primarily pinto beans and sometimes black beans. I'm also the Northarvest delegate to United States dry bean growers, and I've attended several of the trade missions, and I would reiterate what Cordell has just said. On a lot of these trade missions, it's 1 or 2 traders go with, and usually 1 grower. And when I first started going on these, I was wondering why are we sending grower on a trade mission? Because we're not doing business with anybody. But the reality is that the buyers are really interested in talking with the growers and what they do, how they do it, what they raise, the methodologies they use to raise their bean crop, and whatnot. The latest one that I was on, I was in Peru and Chile at the in the middle of November, and 2 new countries. It was a kind of a market development program, and we visited 5 dealers in Peru and 4 in Chile. And one of the key factors that's been said over and over again is the fact that United States has the highest quality beans in the entire world, and we hear that all the time. And Peru and Chile is just starting to get into some of our beans. We made some headways and sold some of the dealers that we're with were able to sell some pinto beans there and a few kidneys, and they were just never have tried pintos before, but they were willing to try new classes of beans, which I thought was real interesting. So they, and another thing that these buyers, some of these dealers from Peru and Chile, they had been up into Nebraska and Colorado last year on what we call a reverse trade mission, and introduced them into the United States market for dry beans. We do a reverse trade mission every year in the United States Dry Bean Council, and basically we've done it now. It's regional. Last year was Colorado and Nebraska. Next year I think it will be in Michigan area. Following year it's going to be in the Fargo area, North Dakota, Minnesota area, and they like the fact that they're being introduced to a whole new group of dealers and people that they didn't know, and they enjoy the experience. They like to see. We try to have them during the harvest time, so they see, if they're lucky, we're able to see some of the harvest going on, whatnot, and what have you, and they really enjoy that. Another thing about United States dry beans, we're trying to get a kind of a logo on some of the packaging down in some of these countries, just because the consumers down in that area know the fact that if it has U.S. on it, it's a high quality product, and it's just, there's no getting around it. And we went down to markets, some of the wholesale markets in the downtown area of Lima, Peru, and Santiago, Chile, and there was some areas where they had some nice looking beans, you know, coming in maybe from Argentina, and one of our competitors in the black bean especially, but there were some that weren't so good looking as well, and so and they know that, and so I think that hats off to our producers in the United States because of that reason. Another thing I was tasked to talk about just a little bit here is we have a Beancon promotion event every single year, and it was a kind of an event created by United States Dry Bean Council, and out to reach a global audience about all the new trends in production, scientific testing, ingredients that we were talking about earlier, a whole scope of areas, new areas, and cutting edge technologies in the bean area. This year it is in Medellin, Colombia, February 15th to the 17th. Chelsea will be speaking at that event, as well as a number of very famous chefs, technologists, the whole slate, a lot of health issues. We talk about the positives of the bean, and a lot of the stuff we've talked about here today already. So that's a big event. It's a worldwide. We have a worldwide audience for that event, and it is pretty amazing. So if you have nothing to do, you want to go to Colombia on February 15th, you're welcome. And the last thing that I was supposed to talk about a little bit was I'm on the Food Aid Committee for the United States Dry Bean Council as well, and we've been doing some policy work, kind of to combine what the first speaker of the day was talking about, Thor Cederstrom. He's been instrumental in helping us try to get the dry beans back into the food aid world chain. And we've been kind of outpaced, as he had mentioned, with the pea and lentil areas. But beans used to be a pretty big part of that, and I am not sure where we got lost in that. But we have made some steps in that direction, and we will continue to do so. And part of that, of getting to that point where we're going to be successful, is knocking on doors in Washington, D.C. and talking to people that make decisions as far as food aid. And I think I better stop talking because I'm one of the shy ones on this board.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Hansen. I'm the finance director with Northarvest, and I went on a trade mission to Costa Rica and Dominican Republic last September with the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Governors and Premiers Organization. I'm not a grower, I'm not a seller, so my goal on this trip was to learn more about how North Dakota and Minnesota beans are perceived in Costa Rica and Dominican Republic. In Costa Rica, one of my meetings was with Walmart. I met with Susana Barboza, the grain and bean purchasing manager. She said Walmart imports 80% of dry beans and the rest come from Costa Rican farmers. Walmart buys, cleans, and packages the beans under their own labels, and they also export beans to other Central American countries such as Honduras and Nicaragua. She said bean prices have been up 40 to 50% in the last year. Susanna indicated that Costa Ricans don't like our small red bean because the taste and texture break down too much after a couple of days. She said that most people cook their beans, a pot of beans on Monday to eat throughout the week, and by midweek, our small reds are not pleasant. And she said, culturally, Costa Ricans still do eat a lot of beans and rice, but that has been on the decline in the past few years. I also met with Grupo Impargro, I apologize if I'm massacring that, one of the largest processors in San Jose. And they mainly buy beans from Michigan. They said North Dakota beans are smaller and Michigan beans are more consistent in quality and size. Adrian told me that Costa Ricans don't like canned beans, they prefer dried, but they might be open to flash frozen beans. So that's something that we can possibly pursue. And they like U.S. beans because they don't have to clean them after receiving. On average, back in September, it was taking 2 months for their beans to arrive from the U.S. In Dominican Republic, I met with, again, I'm going to massacre this, La Sanuanera, an importing and packing company. And they might mainly buy beans from Nebraska and Wyoming because they have bigger pinto beans than North Dakota, Minnesota, and the color is better. And they're also importing 80% of their beans. They, at the time in September, they were experiencing a 4-month delay in getting beans, and they're saying that the quality of the beans once they arrive don't always match the sample they received. I met with another importing packing company, Importadero del Sul, and they don't care for North Dakota, Minnesota beans. They say the service and quality are not on par with Michigan. They mainly buy from Michigan and Nebraska, and their concerns for the future are having new generations of farmers after our current farmers retire. He's not seeing a lot of young people entering the field. He would like to see some new varieties come out, and he's concerned with big companies controlling the seed market. My biggest takeaway from the trip was hearing that North Dakota and Minnesota do not have the best beans. So there's always room to improve. Everyone I met with would love to see some research conducted to improve some of the issues that we have with our beans.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, Cordell, and Kevin. For my trade trip, in November of 21, Northarvest asked to send a delegate along to the UK. The trade mission was sponsored by Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota's office, along with Minnesota Commissioner of Ag and the Minnesota Trade Office. So I went on that trade mission. There was about 40 of us, and probably about 4 different tracks: agriculture, education, energy, and medical, I believe. So the ag part of the trip focused around, for us, one issue at the time. When the U.S. placed steel and aluminum tariffs on the UK retaliated with an import tariff on dry edible beans, mainly centered around the navy beans, which at the time, before COVID, the UK was importing a lot of our navy beans. Bush plant there in the UK processes a lot of our beans. So we acknowledged the trip with Governor Walz's office. I went along, and the first meeting that I attended was with, at the time, the trade minister of the UK, Penny Marno. So those trade missions gave us a seat at the table to talk directly about something that affects us here at home. I mean, she was very down to earth at the time, very receptive. Unfortunately, everyone understands when you play politics with food, there is a lot of hoops to jump through. So the conversation went well. It gave us insight to what their concerns are. I voiced our concerns from a grower perspective and a U.S. grower. So very good part of the trip, something that your checkoff dollar supported that got you a seat at the table to address an issue internationally. You know, the second day, we moved on to their Department of Ag and their Department of Transportation, which is, in essence, quite different from what we perceive it as here in the U.S. So, I mean, their farm bill planning is totally different from what we perceive it here today. Their main focus at the time was going green, sustainability, plant-based proteins. Those types of things were all on their radar. They were in the middle of a program focusing on those areas. So that is, like I said, we've had many discussions today. Those issues are real, you know, in the international market. So we just have to, you know, take a look at those when we go forward and define it for ourselves so that we know what it means to us, so that when our customers come and ask for those type of things, we can present them with a logical explanation of why we should be their main supplier. I believe Kevin's going to return to the UK on a trade mission here upcoming, so it'll be interesting to see what his report is when he gets back, to see what the changes are, if there's any effects. You know, again, when I was there visiting with him, we were the first trade mission to be the UK after COVID. So you know, they were anxious to have people there, you know, to talk to, bring them a message. They're dealing with the same issues there: labor, supply chain issues. It was all the same talk we have around our tables and our businesses. So that is similar, but we still have the political aspects of delivering our beans, our products worldwide. So, I mean, hopefully we can all get on the same page, but with the help of your checkoff dollars for Northarvest, U.S. Dry Bean Council, we'll hopefully work through some of those issues to get us to that next stage of market development. You know, we use a lot of farm bill dollars for these trade missions through FMD, which is our Foreign Market Development, Market Access Program, Foreign Ag Service. Those are all representatives of you guys and dollars that are spent to try and boast our businesses here in the States. So, you know, again, trade missions are a valuable tool that we use. So I guess maybe I'll just go for closing comments one more time down the panel, and then we'll open it up for any other questions. But questions I'll pose: the value of using checkoff dollars for trade missions.
What are some of the values?
Yep.
Is it? I mean, I know there's a lot of industries out there that are kind of fighting the checkoff ideology, but I mean, we either control our destiny or we don't, you know. And unless you're at the table, unless you are directing the orchestra, somebody else is going to do it for you. And so checkoff, it's going to this board, and the guys that are on this board, you guys have to talk to, and you have to let them know what you're interested in. If it's, we need to spend more on export development, if it's more on research, because we're directing the ship, and we need to know where the ship should go. And we're so lucky that we have this checkoff in place. I mean, where we're from, we are in irrigation, and we have an uphill battle with this water, and we don't have that luxury to have this pool of money to help build arguments, research, markets, these kinds of things. So I'm a huge proponent, and I just, the value is immeasurable to me.
Yeah, ditto. Checkoff dollars are definitely valuable in opening markets where we've never been before. There's no doubt about that. And then also, and as far as the world markets, I mean, we struggle with this at the United States Dry Bean Council, is the fact that For example, Europe, before the Ukraine-Russia war started, we're getting ready to implement a zero tolerance minimum residue levels on certain chemicals, and it was a feel-good thing, but it was not based on anything science. So now we've kind of coalesced with a bunch of other groups, and we are putting our science-based effect into the European market. Amazingly, once the war started, they dropped that off because they were worried about food insecurity. So I thought that was interesting. But the checkoff dollars, I've seen it firsthand, absolutely, in opening markets and in telling our story to different buyers throughout the world about the U.S. dry bean and how it is better and why they should buy our beans.
I think trade missions are valuable for the relationships you can build. You actually meet people face to face, have great conversations, form relationships, and then they remember you, and they have a contact to reach out if they have a question or a problem or just want to have a conversation. So I think relationship building is invaluable through trade missions.
Well, we'll open the floor. Is there any questions around trade mission trips that we're doing on your behalf? Anyone have any questions? Any place you'd like to see us to go? Anything we need to touch base on there? Okay, Mitch, you want to? Okay, we're going to touch base just one more time for the grower survey. Again, the grower survey is part of your checkoff dollars. It helps us as a board form our decisions, what we're going to do for the next year. So we're always constantly working on your behalf, trying to find that next, idea, research project, trade mission, whatever it's involved. You guys have a say in that. So please, talk to your director, call our office. We have go to the website. All of our information today will be on the website. So please follow up with us if you can. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call. So thank you, panel.